Today we're diving into the adventure romance virgin territory, a film packed with unexpected turns. It opens with Tendario, a former thief who switched paths to avoid disgrace. He became an artist, painting animals, nuns, and angels. But soon, everything changed. The plague hit Italy. Tendario begins telling us about Lorenzo, who loses a card game to Gerbino. Fearing the consequences, Lorenzo escapes. Gerbino chases after him, but Lorenzo is fast and determined not to be caught. Lorenzo secretly loves Pampina, a wealthy girl who's wise, not spoiled. His friends warn him that Gerbino's men have surrounded his home, so Lorenzo flees the city. Meanwhile, Tendario's priest dies, leaving him without money. Hearing strange voices, he suddenly decides to become a priest himself, believing the role brings wealth, influence, and the company of beautiful nuns. Next, we're introduced to Gerbino. According to Tendario, he resembles a stallion, though rumors suggest his sword has long rusted. Pampina, now orphaned, is being forced to marry Count Dzerzhinsky from Russia. Gerbino claims his father approved the marriage before passing away. Later, Lorenzo escapes Gerbino's guards on horseback. On the way, he meets a worker transporting a body from the Bleeding Heart Monastery. The man explains the gardener's greatest secret: he was both deaf and mute. To avoid bandits, Lorenzo climbs a tree, but he falls and blacks out. 3 nuns discover him and believe he's a heavenly angel. They bring him to the monastery, where they admire his features, his lips, his hair. One nun suggests removing his clothes to check for injuries. She lifts his shirt, kisses his stomach, and then offers to kiss his lips. Lorenzo watches but says nothing. When the mother arrives, she assumes Lorenzo must be deaf and mute. Pleased, she says he'll make a fine new gardener and suggests he be sent for a bath. The nuns later visit Lorenzo and behave in ways not typical for women of faith. Meanwhile, Pampina invites her friends to the upcoming wedding. Filomena proudly mentions her purity, but Alyssa hints that not everyone is as innocent as they seem. The girls whisper that Pampina is actually in love with Lorenzo, something Gerbino overhears. Furious, he threatens them. Tendario catches the exchange and starts hearing voices again. He boldly tells Gerbino to leave the sacred place. Gerbino wants to punish him for the insult, but Tendario quickly asks when he last confessed. Shocked by his own courage, Tendario becomes convinced that he's meant to be a priest. Filomena finds a carriage for their journey. Alyssa asks who it belongs to, and Filomena says it's her uncle Bruno. He isn't the brightest, but he's still innocent. Bruno says he guards his purity like the apple of his eye. Alyssa then reveals that Tendario will be their priest. Pampina arrives at the monastery, hoping to protect her virginity, unaware of the company she's keeping. Around the same time, Count Dzerzhinsky appears. Mistaking Gerbino for Pampina's father, he introduces himself. Gerbino rudely corrects him, claiming he's her future husband. Tensions rise, threats are exchanged, and the Count is forced to leave. Outside, he's approached by the pastor, who hands him a letter from Pampina and says she'll meet him at the country villa. Meanwhile, 2 nuns visit Lorenzo, asking for what he gave the others. They begin to undress, and Lorenzo agrees without hesitation. Elsewhere, Tendario and Bruno head out together. Tendario complains that Bruno frequently spoils the air. Filomena, still proud of her purity, brags once more. She brings up her friend Diono, who she claims is also innocent. Pampina, however, notes Diono's been acting oddly lately. Later, Diono and his friend spot 2 girls motioning to them. Diono urges his friend to find out what they want. The girls offer them milk and bread, then lead them to a barn. Inside, they point to a cow, saying that's where the milk came from. The boys follow eagerly. Filomena hears loud noises from the barn and walks in, only to witness the boys and girls rubbing against each other. That same day, the nuns and Pampina visit Lorenzo to bring him water. When Pampina approaches, she splashes it onto his head and tells him to drown. Later, Father Tendario chooses to part ways with Filomena. He gently tells her there's nothing wrong with a simple kiss and walks away. The next day, Pampina returns to Lorenzo. She blindfolds him, kisses him, and says she dreams about him. Meanwhile, Diono sneaks off to meet Filomena in the forest. She finds him, plants a soft kiss, and hints that he'll soon get what he desires. She kisses him again and again, until Diono begins twitching. Suddenly, they're ambushed by bandits and taken prisoner. That night, the leader approaches the girls, offering them a job. Alyssa finds him attractive and intense. She suggests a clever plan and visits his room, where she dances for him. Afterward, she tells the others it was dull, he only wanted a dance. The girls then plot to steal the key and trick the bandits into removing their pants. A scuffle follows, and they escape. On their way out, the leader confronts them, but Bruno takes him down. The following day, Pampina tells her mother she overheard Lorenzo singing in the garden and was charmed by his voice. Feeling envious, she decides to leave the convent. Meanwhile, the head nun whispers to the sleeping Lorenzo that the butcher is there to cut out his tongue. He jolts awake, begs forgiveness, but is still thrown out of the monastery. Count Dzerzhinsky flees from the people of Gerbino and ends up near a waterfall to drown his sorrows. There, he spots Alyssa floating in the water. Stunned, he wonders if she might be a sorceress. Introducing himself formally, he says it would be a miracle if she isn't Pampina, calling her the most beautiful girl he's ever seen. Alyssa steps from the water, and they share a kiss. Meanwhile, Pampina passes the monastery and meets Lorenzo. She tells him she's heading to her wedding, and he chooses to join her. Around the same time, Tendario arrives at the monastery and declares that the abbess is a woman of unmatched desire. He meets her, claiming he seeks prayer and service. She leads him to a room and suggests engaging in peculiar acts. Later, Lorenzo tells Pampina he's in love with a girl who once kissed him and still haunts his thoughts. As they walk, Pampina offers to help him remember, but Gerbino appears and attacks. Pampina warns him that harming Lorenzo means she'll never marry him. She sets a condition: she'll marry Gerbino only if he spares Lorenzo's life. Gerbino agrees and declares their wedding is near. Tendario arrives at the castle, and Pampina asks him to delay the wedding. Meanwhile, Lorenzo is taken to the forest by guards. They reveal that Gerbino ordered his death, but instead of killing him, they let him go. Suspicious at first, Lorenzo eventually overcomes and kills them. On his way back, he encounters Count Dzerzhinsky, also heading to Pampina. Back at the castle, Tendario does his best to stall the ceremony. He slowly pours wine, encouraging the guests to sip and chat. Gerbino grows impatient and threatens him, but Tendario calmly claims the wedding is already done. Just then, the Count bursts in and fires at Gerbino. Lorenzo follows and whisks Pampina away. A fight erupts between the Count and Gerbino, but Lorenzo intervenes. The Count warns that killing Gerbino would force him to kill Lorenzo too. They settle the matter with a coin toss. Lorenzo wins. Gerbino hesitates at the edge of a well, but the Count shoves him. A final struggle begins. Lorenzo offers Gerbino a risky choice: jump into the deep well and maybe live. Instead, Gerbino lunges at him and ends up falling in. The Count applauds Lorenzo but nearly pushes him into the abyss. Just then, Pampina arrives and the Count asks for her hand in marriage. At that very moment, Alyssa appears, the true object of his affection. Realizing this, Pampina rushes to Lorenzo and kisses him. The gesture jogs his memory. He now recalls she was the one who kissed him at the monastery. A joyful wedding follows, filled with celebration and kisses all around. Meanwhile, Tendario announces his return to the monastery, where his beloved angel awaits, the same one to whom he dedicated his painting. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss an update.